The standard carpentry method to make an inline butt joint can fail due to poor installation and shrinkage. It can be time-consuming and usually requires 2 people to complete it. With the joiner method, both boards are fastened in a lap position and are never taken off the wall again. Both are cut at one time on a specific angle. The result is a very high quality joint that is in compression and will resist normal shrinkage, taking only a fraction of the time and done by just one person. Hello, I'm Al Williams. You've probably had the task to do an inline butt joint with 2 boards on the job site. It could be horizontal or it could be vertical. Usually it's required that the finished joint have a good tight fit and a quality appearance. As you know, to achieve this, a certain skill is required. It can be time consuming, especially if the joint has to be hand fitted after the final cut. Let's go through the 6 or more usual steps it takes to do this. First, a board is positioned. It is marked where the cut needs to be made, taken to the saw, cut, brought back, repositioned and fastened. The second board then lays on top of the first. A mark is made to correspond with the first cut. It is taken to the saw, cut, brought back, repositioned and checked for fit. Usually it's assumed that each board will be a 90-degree face cut. This is only true if both boards are on line. If not, it can result in the face board being too long or too short at one point. It can create a gap top and bottom. Then it would have to be hand fitted. And on a pre-finished board, any extra fitting after the cut can damage the finish. And it can be sanded or puttied. The wider the board, the more the challenge to make the 2 surface cuts touch evenly at the joint. It's possible that a good joint can be made on the first attempt. If not, it can be costly in time and does require a skill to correct it. I had an idea that would enable me to make such a joint as easy as 1, 2, 3. Number 1, both boards are attached to the wall with one board lapping over the other at the intended location of the joint. Number 2, the joiner is placed over both boards. Number 3, the saw is placed between the guide The procedure to make a nice tight joint on 2 boards is the first board is applied to the wall, never to be taken off the wall. Behind the first board is a protective piece to protect the wall surface from the saw blade. The second board is then applied on top of the first board, overlapping where the required joint is going to be. It is fastened to the wall, never to be taken off the wall, and the short distance out, a 3/4 block is placed behind the second board to keep that board parallel with the wall surface. The versatile joiner makes it possible to make a fast and accurate cut of 2 boards that range from a 1x2 up to a 1x12. The joiner is placed over the both boards that are to be joined. The width of the material is determined, tightened on this side. rail is adjustable to accommodate most circular saws on the market. Determine the width of the saw base to be used. Tighten the bottom. Check the rails for parallel. And tighten that side down also. Locate the joiner where the cut is to be made. There is a hole provided for a screw to secure the joiner while the cut is being made. Place the saw between the rails, and with one cut, they make a tight joint of 2 boards. When joining bevel siding, because of the bevel, I take a scrap piece of siding itself, slide it between the 2 boards so that the plane of the board is equal to the plane of the surface. A piece of masking tape is applied to prevent chipping. Place the joint over both boards. Locate it where the cut has to be made. With the versatile joiner, you can use it also as a router guide to dado, cut and spline, or fluting. And the boards can be anywhere from 1x2 up to 1x12. And on this model, you can also true up two ends of board that are uneven. So you'll have a true fit with one cut of the router. So I keep the gap a little less than 1/4 inch. Place the router between the guide. I will now show you how to adjust the saw to the specific angle and depth. Safety first. Always unplug the cord of the saw before changing the blade or adjusting the depth and the angle of the saw blade. To achieve a quality joint with the joiner, the requirements are that you use a good quality saw and a good quality blade. The saw and the blade must have minimum run out. The base of the saw must be straight and not twisted. The edges of the base must be parallel. If the saw base edges are not parallel, then you must make the necessary corrections. To check the dimension of the base, I use a simple clamp at both ends to determine the width of the base, that it is parallel. I recommend the 7 1/4 inch 60-tooth thin curved saw blade when cutting the lapped 3/4 boards, and the plywood blade when cutting the lapped siding. To set the angle and the depth of the saw blade that makes the cut in the joiner, place the template that is supplied over the blade and adjust the approximate angle and depth to the template. Then tighten the knob. I will now show you the final depth check for the saw blade. Safety first. Always unplug the cord of the saw before changing the blade or adjusting the depth and the angle of the saw blade. To make a final check of the depth of the saw blade, place the joiner on a flat surface. Put the saw that is to be used between the tracks of the joiner. Then take a protective piece, like the piece of linoleum, and slide it up to the teeth of the saw blade, making sure that the teeth are just low enough to touch the top of the protective piece. Finally, tighten the depth gauge knob. Wearing your safety glasses, I recommend that you make a test cut to be sure that both the depth and the angle of the saw blade are correct. If the depth and the angle of the saw blade are not correct, make the necessary adjustments before making a final joint.